last January 2022, I was suicidal. Like, I was sitting in Sydney thinking, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm afraid of everything. I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of going to zero in my business. We just crossed $1 million cash this year so far. So this year will be like $5 to $10 million if we don't grow. So many men and women can make money. Money is a game. But if you're making money and you're sacrificing your relationship, you're stressed out all the time, can't sleep at night, you're overweight, you're unhappy, then what's the fucking point?
There's something about every successful person that I meet, and that's always that there's fear in their lives. But the difference between those who succeed and those who don't is always in how they react or use that fear. You see, there's two things that fear does. It either spurs you into action or it paralyzes you. Now, my next guest is Toni Versic, and in this conversation, we go through all the key things that we all go through when in fear and how to get past that and keep moving forward. I was lucky enough to have Toni as a client back in 2022, and the growth he's had, in particular this year in 2023, has been incredible. And already this year, his business, The Empowered Man, who helps men in all aspects of life, from saving marriages to having fulfillment, as they grow their business, has already collected $1 million in cash. And we have a long way to go till the end of this year. And in this episode, he shares things about team building, what it takes to scale a business, more importantly, how to love what you do and how to take time out for yourself. It was awesome to do this in person as well. So without further ado, let's get into the conversation. This is the Entrepreneur Unplugged. What got you started in business, just in general, like whether it's online or something else? Like what drove you to put yourself through it?
Drugs and alcohol. Yeah. So I started selling and taking drugs when I was like 16 years old, and I developed really bad anxiety. Yeah. So I went to the doctor, who's the expert. You're 16 years old, you go to the doctor, and he goes, "You have anxiety." And that put me in this box that I was in for like 10 years. So from 16 to 26, this box. And then I thought a way to get through that was more.
What happened before that, though?
Before that, I was fine. I was like a year ahead in school. I was doing well. Got bullied a lot, so I started hanging out with the cool kids. Yeah. I was the sober driver for the cool kids. Yeah. And I was like, I won't take any drugs. I won't be like my dad a year later. The worst of the lot of them. Yeah. And then I was with a friend. I started going to the gym when I was like 17, and that really helped. And then a friend of mine just said, "Why don't you become a personal trainer?" So I'm like, "Oh, that's a great idea."
Good idea. Yeah.
Went and did this 2-year course, finished it in 3 months. Because when I latch onto something, like I fucking go all in, and that includes includes drugs and alcohol. Yeah. Like I go all in on the thing.
Personality.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and the same with business. So
I was going to say a lot of business owners probably the same, right?
100%.
That obsession.
Yeah, we don't have an off switch, and that can be a problem as well. Yeah. So. Yeah, did that, and then I went on a cruise ship when I was 20 years old, and you had to learn how to sell because you think you're going to be a personal trainer, but you actually don't train anyone. Yeah. You go on stage and do seminars about why you can't lose fat unless you have this magic algae that like burns through the liver cells. And I'm doing these seminars in front of 100 to 1,000 Americans who are all overweight and trying to sell them fat loss, and it's commission only. So that was a business within itself because you don't get paid unless you sell. So 20 years old, foreign country, selling. That was the first time into business. Yeah. And then when I came home to New Zealand, so I'm originally from New Zealand, born in Croatia. Yeah. Came home and went to a gym, opened up a personal training business. I was making like $3 or $4 grand a week at 21 years old. So I was doing pretty well, right? I was crushing it. And then I went over to Sydney, and that's when it just started growing. And about 8 years ago, when Facebook ads were like $1 to get a lead, we went online, and that's when it blew up. So before, like all the personal trainers you see online, everyone's a fitness coach now. We were like doing online challenges, 20,000 people coming through, and just like 10 to 20x ROI. Yeah. And that just threw me in the deep end. Wow. Right. Yeah.
Living the dream at that stage. Right?
It was. But I also was a kid. I had no idea what I was fucking doing. So I made a lot of mistakes. Yeah. A lot of mistakes.
In what way?
In many ways, like not hiring, being afraid of growing, the stories around running a business. There was always that story, like right now the business is cranking. We just crossed $1 million cash this year so far. So far. So he's around insane. And you started working with me 6 months ago. You know my numbers from before. Yeah. So this year will be like $5 to $10 million if we don't grow. And every year before this one, there was just this fear of growth. There was the story that you can't find good staff.
Yeah.
That when you find people, no one can do it as well as you, that you might fail, especially when you have a kid, man. Like back then, I didn't have any responsibility. So a lot of mistakes around hiring, fear.
How many people did you have back then when you...
It was just me.
It was just you.
It was just me. Everything.
Wow.
Sales calls, coaching, marketing, everything.
Wow.
But back then I wasn't aware. So when you're not aware, it's a lot easier.
Just do it, right?
It's actually, you just do the work and you become aware, and all the beliefs and stories and bullshit comes up. That's where the fear kicks in, you know?
Is that how you think, like, you know, when, like sometimes you have some ignorance, right? Like I don't know how, what the term is, but sometimes when you just don't know anything, you just go for it. What did you do in that first year? Like as far
just did
as
the work.
Revenue and like...
In the first 2 months, I made $100,000 online. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was like the star pupil. So my mentor, Lynn Trin, he was like friends with Alex Hormozy and Garrett White and Russell Brunson. He was in their mastermind when it first started. So he was my first mentor. Yeah. And he just taught me everything I needed to know. And it was easy to make money. But as soon as I started making money, I started sabotaging it. Yeah. So I made $100,000 in the first 2 months, so $50,000 a month. And I stayed at that level for like 3 years.
Wow. Okay, so it was just like massive growth and then plateaued.
Just plateaued. Self-sabotage. So much self-sabotage.
All you reckon?
Or me. Well, my childhood, like there's a lot we can go into there. I think everyone's got their shit. Yeah. But I just sabotage because I'd get to a certain level and tell myself a story that was enough. And then you realize as you get older and as you become more experienced, every day that you're not crushing it is a day you're losing that you'll never get back. Yeah. So now I'm of the opinion I need to get as wealthy as possible, as quickly as possible, not for the money, for the freedom that brings you. Like, I don't want to work till I'm 65. I'm 31. When I keep building the way that I'm building, which is terrifying, like hiring a team, we've got 10 now, we'll have 20 at the end of the quarter. When you keep facing that fear and building the business up and you've made $2-3 million profit in a year, you do that for 2 years in a row, you never have to work again. You literally never have to work again. And then business becomes a lot more fun because you work because you love it. Now you can love it, but if you can't pay your bills and you're worried about providing, you're fucked. Yeah. You really are, right? And this is what I'm realizing more and more. These are blind spots. I wasn't aware of it. Yeah. This is why these podcasts, mentors, coaches are so important.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. I mean, I love it. I love talking about this sort of stuff because if we just talked about these last few months and what revenue you're crossing, what cash collected and where the business is going, and even if we look back in the last 12 months, you can see that it wasn't an overnight thing, right? But now if we talk back to where you're going, where the pathway that we're talking now, I'm interested to know, you know, when did you realize that it was you that was stopping the growth? Do you know what I mean? Like you get on and then ads are cheap, you crush it for the first few months and then you kind of go plateau. At what stage do you go, hang on a sec, like it's me that's responsible for this, you know what I mean?
That's a great question. So the entire time I was aware of that, but there's 3 stages of like growth. There's knowing something, there's doing it, and then there's becoming it. And that's a little bit going to go over some people's heads, but the whole of last year, the lesson I kept learning was choosing and being. So I'll backtrack a little bit. Last January 2022, I was suicidal. Like I was sitting in Sydney thinking, I don't want to be here anymore. And with that came an extreme amount of guilt because I had a daughter. So it's okay. It's not okay to think that, but when you're thinking that without a family, different story. Yeah. So I'm sitting there thinking about ending it, then judging myself for the negative emotion. And when you look on the outside looking in, I had everything. I just bought my 4th property. I'd achieved all my financial goals. I had my family. That's what I always wanted. But I didn't set new targets. I never had that next vision, and I just like started drifting. Prior to that, it was always grind. And the entire time, the last 6 years of Empowered Man or Toni Body, what it previously was, I've taught take responsibility for your thoughts, feelings, actions, and reactions. I've taught it. Yeah. I've known it. I've taught it. I've done it, but I haven't been it. So January 2022, the reason this is relevant, I go to the doctor, get some antidepressants. I take one, I can barely keep my eyes open. Yeah, right. It's like midday. My eyes are just dropping. And the guy didn't even ask me if I'd done anything. He just gave them to me. Terrible expert, right? Yeah. So I threw them in the bin. The next day, I'm like, I need to fucking get my shit together. I've got a daughter. Now, I've told myself I'm going to get my shit together for years, but this constant up and down, this is what how most people operate. Up, down, down. You know that Arnold Schwarzenegger song? Up, down. You know that? It's like that. It's constant. There's no consistency because we do shit and we know what we should do, but we don't become. So I made a decision after 31 years or 30 years, I'm going to not just do shit, I'm going to become someone. So every morning, up at the same time every day, every night, evening reflection, all the shit that I teach, breath work, meditation, journaling, reflection, hiring, facing fear, everything I teach, I started living it. Last year, 9 out of 12 months, I was happy. Now that might sound like good or bad. For me, that was fucking insane. Because I was in the cycle of like doing well, hate my life, doing well, stressed as fuck, doing well. When I met you, I was stressed as fuck. And it was probably September last year, I think I met you. And I went to see a friend here who had a $500,000 a month Airbnb business. And I told him what I do. We coach business owners who are making lots of money, but their health and relationships are falling apart. Yeah. They've got no balance. I told him what I do. He's like, that's an amazing niche. I told him my numbers and he's like, why don't you have a team? I say, well, because I'm afraid. I'm afraid that if I have a team, I've hired before, it hasn't worked out. 4 years ago, I hired a sales rep. Didn't work out. Yeah. Right? So I left that conversation. He told me that I need to create constraints. He's like, bro, you've got the mindset, you've got the steps, you're doing everything right. You just haven't created constraints. So I went and hired 3 sales reps the next day. And I just lent into that fear. And again, this isn't an overnight thing. This is like 30 years of fear, fuck-ups, failures, drugs, alcohol, self-doubt, uncertainty, suicidality. But there was this tipping point where I realized that if I don't make the decision now, I'm still going to have to make it at some point. I might have to make it in a year or 3 or 5, but I don't want to be 57 and making the decision. Yeah. So I hired the reps, complete fucking disaster. Like no idea what I'm doing, no onboarding. And every single time that happened last year, I just learned from it. I sat down, I spent about an hour a day just thinking and reflecting, probably half an hour on my walk, half an hour, 15 minutes of journaling, 15 minutes each evening of reflection. Yeah. I just learned systems, processes, people. And then September through to December 2022, things were going well. And then this year, I'm like, fuck it, we're going to keep growing. And then we built the team to like 10 or 11. Yeah. And now it's just like a rocket ship. Yeah. And the funny thing is, there is a tipping point. This is where it all comes together. We know that we should have a good routine. We know that we should lean into action when we're procrastinating. We know everything. Like there's enough information out there. Yeah, sure. We also know how to do it. Everyone on the planet that's listening to this has had a week or a month of doing well. But what if you did it for a year fucking straight? So like getting up at 4:45 a.m. for a year, you know, all the routines, gym for a year. If you build that consistency and order, which we've done in our business and with my team, the chaos doesn't matter. Because what fucks you up in business? It's the chaos. It's the chaos of the external world, like people, team, money, finances, stress. But if you can master your internal world, which is what we teach, then the order you have each morning and each day, you're unfuckwithable. The chaos can't fuck with you. Yeah, but it requires massive commitment. You do know how to do it, but it becomes who you are. Like you don't have the capacity to be fucked with. And that's when you win in business.
Yeah, for sure. You know? I think you made a good point in that with consistency and everything else, right? I want to touch on that in a second, like what creates consistency. But just going back 9 out of 12 months, like you're pretty happy. And was that good? What happened with the other
3? The other 3. A bad mushroom trip.
But is that like a reset or is that a bad?
It was a good thing. No, so I went away. So I started taking quarterly breaks. Like there's things no one teaches you in business. Yeah. Have a quarterly break. But what if I slow down? Things will fall apart. So I took a quarterly break. I got gastro from my daughter during that break. Yeah. I decided to take the shrooms anyway. It was a terrible experience. I was like curled up in a ball. And for 3 months after that, I felt a lot of anger and a lot of emotion and a lot of fear and uncertainty, which was a recurring theme for me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've heard that a few times. You're saying about the fear that, you know, there's some things holding you back there, right?
100%. Well, what if you fail, right? Yeah. It's funny. I've got a friend who just moved to America. To, you know, Jeff Seckinger, I think.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, and Joel. Yeah. So they he flew over there to talk to them about business, and they just offered him 20% of a business. But he was so afraid for like 2 years to go do it. And on the other side of that fear is so much amazing stuff. Yeah. So one thing that I started practicing was, because I'm afraid of everything. I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of going to zero in my business and being a fuck up. Yeah. But I just write down the worst case scenario. So I'm like, what's the worst case scenario here? And I go into it. I'm like, let's sit in this worst case scenario. And it's never that bad.
It's not that bad. I mean?
No.
No. I have a thing, especially with sales reps, when they're not signing people, or they're going through a bit of a rut where, like, what's the worst case scenario here? What's the worst thing that can happen if you don't sign people? You go get another job. Like, you're going to be fine, right?
100%.
And sometimes when they lean into that, they go, oh, yeah, shit. And then they loosen up and things kind of happen, you know, a lot better in that way. How do you deal with it when you know these things, right? Like, you know fear, you know the past that you're dealing with. What helps you move forward and create that consistency, you know, because like you do a routine, you're very structured in that way.
Yeah.
But what creates that consistency?
That's a great question. Consistency comes from evidence and confidence comes from evidence. So you got to prove to yourself that this is how you operate now. So most of us like are consistent Monday to Friday. What happens Saturday, Sunday? Like this sounds glaringly simple and obvious. And I taught this in the room on the weekend. We ran a retreat. There was 38 guys there.
Yeah.
Between them, they made $200 million a year just this weekend.
Yeah.
I said, how many of you guys are consistent for 5 days? Hands up. 10, 20, 30. Hands are just dropping. Out of 38 guys, $200 million a year, 30 or more days was 2 guys. So one of the biggest shifts for me was my routines are my life. They're my operating system. I get up at 4:45 every single day. I go for a walk, rain or shine. If it's raining, I go for a walk. That gets my mind and my body moving. I come home, and this is the answer to be consistent. I close my eyes. I do 3 reps of breathing exercises. So in, out. I won't do it on the microphone right now, but 30 reps, right? 3 rounds.
Yeah.
On the last one, I hold my breath, and I see clearly everything I want. It takes like a minute, but you can see the entire future. So I just bought this watch. You know, it's my dream watch for 3 years. Nice. I saw it every morning for the last 3 months. Yeah. You can't get them, right? I saw it every morning. Then I started seeing it at my event. One just popped up, right?
Yeah.
I saw the 300K in the bank account last month. We did 370. I saw my daughter before she was born. I see things. This might sound hippie mumbo jumbo. I'm not saying you can close your eyes and visualize a Lamborghini and it shows up. But if you can see and feel the things you desire, which requires clarity on what you desire. Most people have no clarity. I want to make lots of money. What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
So you got to have clarity on what you want. Have a great routine that you do 7 days a week. If you're not going to do it 7 days a week, it's not a routine.
It's not a routine.
It's not non-negotiable. For example, do you brush your teeth?
Yeah.
Good answer. You'll be surprised. So we use this in our sales call. Do you brush your teeth? They say no. We're like, fuck. Yeah. But you brush your teeth, you don't think about it. So a routine gets to be non-negotiable in a way where you don't think about it. So you do that every day, and then you have clarity on what you want, and you see it daily. So you got to have that as part of your routine. I close my eyes, I see everything I want, and then you feel so fucking good. You eliminate, because I wake up fearful, anxious many mornings. I delete that, and then I go into my day, which is planned meticulously, and then you just do the hard shit, and you do it consistently over and over again, and that's where the confidence and self-belief comes from.
Yeah.
I had terrible confidence. I used to hate myself. But when you've done this for 90 days in a row, you've seen what you want, you've put in the reps, you've made the money, you've hired the people, and it was fucking hard and scary and terrifying, and you did it anyway, you build so much evidence that you're the fucking man. It's not an arrogance, it's a confidence.
It's a belief system.
It's a belief system. Right? Yeah. You build so much that no one can tell you otherwise. And when you feel that way, how much more work do you get done?
Yeah, well, you're just going towards that thing, right? And
100%.
Like I said, there's evidence of doing that.
100%.
And I think there's a lot of a word that everyone throws around is kind of the discipline around doing that.
Yep.
How much does that play into it? Like,
yep.
And for some context on that, we know it. People do it inconsistently for whatever reason. Life takes over and whatever else, and then they start again, and they got to build momentum. And a lot of people that I talk to, especially in a sales scenario, what stops people from moving forward is just the lack of belief. Like they got a lot of limiting beliefs, so you got to remove that. Going back to it, like where does discipline come in?
Yep.
To getting consistent and building these things. Like, do you believe that that's an important part?
Absolutely. So what we say in our business is discipline means this is planned, right? So most of us spend no time planning. Yeah. So if anyone's listening right now, and there's no judgment here, I didn't used to do this. Do you sit down at the end of the day and plan tomorrow today? Do you plan the next day? Do you every weekend reflect on the week and plan the next day? And if you want, I can send some resources through to the listeners. We have an entire process for this.
For sure.
It's just having a framework. So sales is a framework. You have a framework you follow. We get to create these frameworks for our life. So there's the knowing that you need a routine and that you get to be disciplined. There's doing it, and then there's doing it for so long that it just becomes a part of you. And discipline means this is planned, you've planned it. So there are 4 things that will fuck up any business, any human, any relationship. They are your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, and your reactions. This is the basis of our entire program. So you have a negative thought. Oh, I should stay in bed, or I don't want to do this, or it's raining outside. So thoughts are just language and stories. If you believe that thought, you let it in, you entertain it, it's going to stop you from reaching the 4th step, which is action. So thoughts, feelings, actions, reactions, right? So the action is getting out of bed or hiring someone. The thought is, that's not going to work, I can't do it. Make sense?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Attached to the thought of feelings. So it's cold, I feel cold, or I feel stressed, or I'm going to hire someone and I know it's going to grow my business, but what if I fail? Or I'm into this new sales role, but what if it doesn't work out?
Yeah.
So this fear is within your body. So now you've got a thought, which is completely fabricated. You've got a feeling, which is supported by the thought. Now, if you change the thought to, I'm afraid, like this might not work, but what if it does work? The feeling then changes. You can't have a thought of this is going to work out and feel fear. You can't have the two simultaneously. What people don't understand, or no one's taught us, is these two things are completely within your control.
Yeah.
It's like a muscle. So imagine a negative thought, like somebody comes to your house, they knock on the door, and you can let them in and entertain them and feed them tea and biscuits, give them a beer. If you entertain that thought, you're fucked. Do you know anyone in your life who's really negative, and when if you're around them? Yeah? No? Anyone? All right, cool. Maybe a few. So what you get to do instead is the thought comes and knocks, because they exist. Those thoughts and feelings exist. They knock. You say, I'm not fucking home. And you let another thought in. Does that make sense? So if you can rewire the way you feel and the way you think, which is a process that takes time, you take more action and you don't react to the world, you respond. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when it comes to this idea of discipline, action comes from thoughts and feelings. Now, when you feel stressed, when you feel anxious, when you feel afraid, and you take action anyway, you build a new belief system.
Yeah.
And you also prove to yourself that you can do whatever you want to do. Think about why most businesses fail. It's thoughts and feelings. The actions are simple: marketing, sales, operations, and fulfillment.
Yeah.
There's 4 parts to a business. They're very simple.
It's not complicated.
100%. So for us right now, just on the idea of discipline, now that I've got myself in order, and I've got a long way to go, I'm not perfect. Marketing and sales is actually really easy. I can see $1 million a month, but now it's people. How do you find the right people? Do you know what I mean? That's the hard part.
To take it to the next level.
Exactly.
But I think it's good, with what you're saying, with those 4 things, those 4 key things. And, I want to ask you something about where I think, or where you think most people kind of live in those stages. I've spoken to a lot of, like uber successful people, we're talking like in the hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue in their business. And their biggest thing is, and we were talking about self-doubt, right? People, and that's kind of where the thoughts kick in, where, can I do this? What if it doesn't work? And they all have it at different levels. And exactly what you just said, the best way to get out of it is just to take action anyway. Yes. Right? Just lean into it and go for it. Where do you think, out of those 4 things, thoughts, feelings, action, reaction, where do most people focus their energy? Do you know what I mean? Out of those,
it's up here. It's all stories. That, right? It's all perspective. Your perspective is power, right? So give me an example of what you've noticed with people that are unsuccessful in sales versus successful. What's the difference in terms of this? What do they think?
Well, they typically stay in the negative thought, right? Cool. So like you said, I'm scared. Cool. I'm scared. And that kind of keeps going for a longer period of time than people who are more successful. They get out of it. Amazing.
So if the thought is I'm scared or I might fail, the actions you take are going to be in relation to that belief system. So beliefs are just language. They're just words and stories. And the cool thing is you're the master storyteller. So we have a sales rep that started with us in January. He's never done sales before. He made $15,500 last month. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
For working 25 hours a week, right? So when he came in, he was uncertain. He's like, will this work out? Will I fail, etc.? And we quickly showed him that perspective is power. So whether he sells for us or not, he gets to decide which perspective he has. So he can look at it from the angle of this could fail, or he can say, well, how can I make it succeed? Now, if he just asks the right questions, when the negative thought comes up, he's going to feel better about it. He's going to take more action. He's going to win. When you're focused on the negative, you are in this frame, sales, you're in the frame and you're in a box, and you don't actually jump out of that box and look at everything else.
Yeah.
Now this sounds simple. When I feel this good, I forget that I was fucking struggling a year ago, right? It's a muscle. We all have negative thoughts. Most people don't even write their thoughts down.
Yeah.
So every single morning what we teach our guys is, how am I feeling today? What am I thinking about today? What am I grateful for? What is my hit list? 4 things: thoughts, feelings, gratitude, hit list. If you do that 365 times, you now have awareness of your feelings and your thoughts.
Yeah.
So let's say on the motorway, you turn right, you don't check your blind spot, your kids are in the car, truck runs you over, you can die. That's called a blind spot.
Yeah.
Most of us don't even know. We don't have an awareness on what's holding us back.
Yeah.
Successful people, they're hyper aware. They feel all the feelings of negativity. They also think all the negative thoughts, but they fuck them right off faster.
Yeah.
So we call it time to consciousness. How quickly can you bring awareness to the things holding you back, and how quickly can you overcome them? And you get to like the 2-second mark.
Yeah.
A good example of this is Tony Robbins. I used to look at that guy and I'm like, how the fuck is he always happy? Like, does he beat his wife behind the scene? What does this guy do? Like, he must have some problems. Then I realized he just chooses in and out of negative thoughts, in and out of negative feelings. And he also chooses into action so much, because when you're taking the right actions, you can't be negative.
Yeah.
You're too busy.
Yeah,
you don't have enough
you build
time.
momentum and everything else.
You've
right?
seen that with these
Yeah.
successful guys. Like, they don't have time to focus on negative shit.
They move fast. I think that's
So
that's the
fast.
thing. Like real fast. They snap out of it like real quick. And like you said, everybody has it. Like it happens actually quite regularly and more often than probably most have. Right.
100%.
But I think what a lot of people are looking for is just that magic pill that'll just get them into that spot.
Nah, it doesn't exist.
And it doesn't happen that way. Right.
Nah.
But I do want to ask about the writing down feelings, like journaling and things like that.
Yes.
I tried it, and I do it more regularly now. Probably not as regular as I should, but I struggled to get the meaning of it. Right, like fuck, I'm just writing this down, like, and then you just walk away and nothing changes, right?
Yeah.
How can you make it more effective? Because I know it is effective now that I've got a lot better structure about the purpose behind it. But I know for a lot of people that when they try it, it's like, fuck, I'm just writing shit down. Like, what does it actually mean? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how do you effectively do it? Like, what's the main things to get out of actually writing shit down?
Well, you answered your own question in the way you asked it. It's like, I'm struggling with this. It's hard to find meaning. Most people find it that way. It's the story around it. It comes back to what we talked about.
Yeah.
So if we believe that, then we're going to struggle with it. What it really is it's resistance to knowing yourself. Most of us don't know ourselves. So if we fold our arms right now, it's pretty comfortable. If you fold them the opposite way, anyone listening can do this. It's really uncomfortable because you're changing a pattern of being. You're changing the way you operate. So this is the default state, is to fold them this way. You have to design a new state. So if you've never written down your thoughts and feelings, you're going to have resistance to it because it's uncomfortable. Because you're scrolling on your phone, which I used to do, and watching TV, that's comfortable. So sitting down with yourself, the purpose of it is to bring awareness to your thoughts and feelings. When you know yourself better and it's conscious, then you can change it. You can't change something very easily if you're not aware of it. If you can't see what's there, how could you possibly fix it? Most of the things holding us back in business and life, we're unaware of. They're unconscious. They're happening without realization. So if you want to become better at doing this, attach a new meaning to it. What if by writing down my thoughts and feelings every morning, I could add $10 million a year to my business? What if I could take back 20 hours a week? What if I knew myself better than anyone else knows me so that I didn't get stressed? What if I eliminated negative thoughts and feelings? Well, how could I do that? By sitting with myself and getting to know myself. Because we don't know ourselves. We pretend like we do. We're full of shit.
We're too busy sometimes.
We're too busy.
Like people
don't have time.
kind of get stuck into that.
100%. Just really quickly on that as well. Like, the first thing we teach our clients, our most successful client does 120 million a year. They're just numbers. It doesn't mean anything. But they all come to us, their relationship's falling apart, they're unhealthy, they're stressed, they're unhappy, they've got a lot of money. The first thing we teach them is the morning ritual, the visualization, thoughts and feelings. The second thing we teach them is evening reflection. What went well today? What triggered me? What disempowered me? What did I achieve? What's the plan for tomorrow? Those are the first two things we teach. Week 2, we teach them about gut health, stress, lowering stress levels. Week 3, how to control thoughts. Without without a doubt, without fail, every single time, every client, they all finish the program. In week 3, they go, this has changed my life forever. We fix marriages in 3 weeks. We eliminate fear. We grow businesses. It sounds glaringly simple. And people listening will go, I know that. It's simple. But how many days in a row do you live it? Yeah. Even you're super aware. You're hyper aware. You're very successful. There's a part of you that resists the journaling because there's a story somewhere of like, I don't have time or it doesn't work for me. And you might be right. But if you really sit with yourself, is it going to benefit you? Probably.
It
right?
will. Yeah, I know it does, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, there is that resistance.
100%.
And I think, to your point, for me, what I've realized in doing that now is just like sitting with myself for 10 minutes, because with the hustle, especially when people are trying to get from 0 to, a certain number, all you think about is just doing. And if you're not doing, like we said earlier, you lose momentum. Oh shit, now I've got to start all over again. I'd love to get your thought on the time that you spend with yourself, like, and how important that is. Otherwise, if you can't reflect, you just don't know where you're going, right? Like, you don't know anything like that. How important has that been for you? This is your routine, right? It's part of your routine.
It's pivotal, but it can fuck you up pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's. I'd love to hear about that. Because it can.
It can and it will, because you have to face parts of yourself you don't like, and that's when it's easier to sedate. That's why alcohol and drugs played a part, because sitting with your own thoughts without a phone, without a distraction, or without a substance requires you to go within. And that's terrifying, because you know that there's parts of you that don't fucking serve you.
Yeah.
So it's very challenging and it can fuck you up. But I feel like it's the only real way to progress. So you can do it by yourself or you can do it with the coach. Both are recommended. But you will get to a point where you love time with yourself because you've worked through all the shit. Now, if you've got years of shit to deal with, trauma from your childhood, fuck-ups and failures in business, hiring mistakes, you're going to have to unravel that. The thing is, though, if you don't sit with yourself and you don't do the work and you don't journal and reflect and all that, it still exists. It's still within you. It's just stuck within you.
Yeah.
So emotions, energy, and motion, there's so much shit stuck within us that we don't realize is holding us back. And this is why it's so important to make that time for yourself and to make sure that your social contracts, your partner, your kids, your team understand that you need that.
Yeah.
Most of us are afraid to do that because we think it's selfish, especially high performance men or business owners. It's like, it's selfish to make time for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you watch TV every hour, like an hour every night. You know what I mean? So it's really important to have that time and to understand that if you are going to do it, it's going to be very uncomfortable. It's going to challenge you. It's going to hurt, and it might even fuck you up a little bit. But just be aware of that, and when it comes up, don't judge it. We've got to make time for ourselves, man. No one does it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, when I look at calendars, it's just like pretty stacked, especially as 100%. a solo operator, solopreneur. They're so busy serving, and that's, you get really far by serving others, but sometimes you forget to serve even yourself, and you just, you don't have any more to give. Sort of in that stage. So I think that's really important. So let's say then we get to a point, you got a lot of awareness, you start to get a little bit disciplined. From a tactical perspective, as far as then growing, I think a lot of people do really well as solopreneurs to get to a certain point. And then the fear of letting go of the things that will help them grow happen. So from a tactical perspective, how do you then go and build the people that you need? Like, what do you think is important? If you had to start again from just by yourself, what would the strategical hires you would do in your business? Yeah,
good question. So first you got to have clarity on your business, niche, all that sort of stuff. I'm assuming that you've already got that.
Yeah,
you're doing well, you're making good money.
Yeah. Probably doing like 50K on your own, 100K even on your own.
Yeah. So really just deciding what you want. It's actually really cool to stay there because you can make great profit there. And just stay there. But if you are growth minded, you'll get really uncomfortable staying there. You'll want to grow.
Yeah.
So sales reps, like you can't be on the phone. You can't be selling. It's such a time sink, and it's not the time, it's the energy. So I would hire a sales rep right away. Depends on what sort of business you run. I'm assuming coaching businesses.
Yeah, coaching business, consulting.
Sales reps for sure. And then somebody to take over fulfillment.
Yeah.
Depending on your business model, one of each.
Yeah.
So we currently have 2 full-time coaches, 2 full-time closers, a setter, and 2 VAs. We just let go of 3 people. But sales reps and someone to do fulfillment, and then from there, marketing and operations.
Yeah.
So I've had marketing agencies for years. I've spent $200,000 on marketing agencies. I do my marketing myself now.
So,
and we're doing better than ever. It takes me 10 minutes a day. So I think that you can hold on to, but definitely sales reps. And also understanding that a lot of stuff's going to come up there as well. I mean, I work with a lot of business owners. We have 180 clients right now. They all say the same thing. You can't find good staff, and it's better to do it on your own because no one can do it as well as you. Stories, right? Yeah. How can I find good staff? Where can I find them? Who in my network do I know? How can I create amazing onboarding, SOPs, training, so that this person actually operates better than I can? Yeah. Most of us is like pushing away the responsibility. Oh, they're not as good as me. Fucking train them. Do you know what I mean? We put so much time into training. Yeah. We've been putting together now an interviewing SOP, getting clear on the character traits and competencies and skill sets of each role. Yeah, nice. You know, job descriptions, sitting down. I can send you this. I created an SOP for it last week for our entire client base. We don't put much time into sitting down and working this stuff out. So if you are listening to this and you're making good money and you want to grow, just ask yourself, what's the end goal? Do I want freedom? Do I want financial freedom, time freedom? You cannot do that on your own. Yeah. It's very difficult. And then there's this fear because the bigger you get, the less you're going to have of time and all that sort of stuff. Yes, you're going to have to eat a little bit of glass. But if you work hard for 3 to 6 months, you can build a team of 20. You really can. Yeah. With the right model. Yeah. And then you can take, 20 hours a week for work and make 300 grand a month profit and then just baseline for a little bit until the next stage. That's what we're sort of aiming for now. So this quarter is all about winter. It's operations. It's hiring. Because we can make a lot of money, but I'm going to burn the fuck out. And I've got a daughter and a wife. Yeah. So we've got, 10 now roughly employees or team members. We're going to go to 2025. We'll probably lose 5. Overhire, overspend, overinvest so that midway through the year, we're on $500,000 a month. But I can actually pull back. Yeah. Because this is where business gets really fun and exciting because you can create cool shit. Yeah. Like Empowered Empire. No one here does ice baths. No one on the Gold Coast. I'm going to start an ice bath company, but you need the team in place to do that. So short answer to your question, sales and fulfillment, ASAP. Yeah. Fulfillment's actually not that expensive. Yeah, sales is where the money goes out. Where the critical. The comms, I think we paid $50,000 in comms. It was crazy. Yeah.
Because, in the past, and I know in the coaching space, it's a little bit different mindset in, sort of the trajectory of business where a lot of people just think you just go on this path where it's like a linear curve that goes along the way. No. But in actual corporate big business, there's a growth period and then there's a period where they just cull people or they flatline for a little bit to then get prepared for the next stage of growth, right? Like that's quite typical. And usually when they do that, there's 2 distinct teams, right? There's sales and operations. That's kind of where it goes. For you, what you were saying before, sales and fulfillment, what would you say for people who maybe is not as efficient at marketing, let's say, or they're good at marketing, but they don't know how to take it to the next level? How do you compensate that inefficient nature of that particular task? Like, do you then, is it better for you to learn it and get really good at it, or is it better to then outsource that part as well?
That's a great question. It's a really good question. It's contextual. It depends on who you're talking about. But basically, you want to just sit down and figure out where are you going to make the most money or take back the most time and leverage yourself out of those positions that you're not good at. So if you're not good at marketing, I would not recommend, if your business is doing well, I would not recommend now going to learn marketing. Learn the basics, but go and find the best person in the space who does it and invest a lot of money into them, like 20, 30, 40, 50 grand. Yeah. Let the war chest go down. Find someone who's backing themselves and invest in them. I spent 113 grand last year on mentors and coaches for personal stuff. Yeah. Probably 200 last year on business stuff. And that was a lot of money. And we went in the red last year. We were actually about to go bankrupt. We had 19 grand left, which is not a lot when your expenses are so high. But invest heavily. One of my one-on-one clients, he's got a $14-ish million business in topsoil. I don't know what topsoil is. I think it's like composting or whatever.
Yeah, it's for grass. And
so they've got all these contracts now. They're going to 30 million this year. They'll probably get to 100 in 2 years. Wow. And we work one-on-one, and he's just hired a general manager who takes away the operation. So that's his marketing. He doesn't want to be in the weeds. Yeah. So he said, I'm going to hire another one in December. This is February, he told me that. So my response was, well, how much can a general manager make you? He said $2.5 million. I said, how much does he cost? Oh, it's expensive, 250 grand. And And I said, wait a second. So you put 250 grand into this guy and he makes you 10x ROI. Yeah. Where in the world do you get that?
Yeah,
why don't we hire one in 3 months? He hired one last week. Yeah. So he's got 2 now. And he's got taken so much time back. So again, this is fear and uncertainty and stories. It's a big cost to invest money. Yes. No, it's not. You got to invest so much money. And it's terrifying when your credit card is going like this. Last month our expense was like 212 grand. I'm like, fuck. But that's not the point. The point is how much do you make top line and profit. It's investing heavily because you can't do it on your own. You can have a great business, but do you want a behemoth? Do you want something that you love, that gives you freedom? You got to invest a lot of money. Yeah. So I'd recommend anyone listening, if you know that you have a great product, you have something within you that you get to share with the world, and you're capped, sit down, write down, where am I not skilled? Where am I skilled? Where is my time most leveraged? Is it hiring people? Is it training people? Is it sales? Do you need to get on the phone and someone else does marketing? And anything you're not good at, find the best people and pay them a shitload of money.
Yeah.
And the ROI will be insane. Even if it's a 2x ROI, where do you make that in property in a year?
Yeah,
you put in 100 grand, make 200. Where do you make that money?
Some ads
Crypto?
you put in ads and you don't get that.
It's crazy. That's another thing I learned, actually. This is really relevant. Is I've always invested in property and assets. I think I learned this from Garrett White. Is like, your business is the number one asset. We don't think of it that way. But do you know what comes before your business? You.
Yeah.
The person stopping you from growing your business it was me. Like, it's the person in the mirror. It's the stories, the belief systems. Most of us don't spend any time or money on ourselves. What if you spend 100 grand a year on yourself? You're like, well, I only make 100. Yeah, but if you spend 100, you make $1 million. We put up a slide, I can share it if you want, of how much we invested in myself and the business, and it was an exponential curve. The more invested, the more it grew. Yeah. It's insane. And now we're investing in team, paying for them to get coaching.
Yeah. It's so powerful, man. I think exactly like you said, people don't sort of see that 250 salary to make 2.5 is probably the best example of it, where there's fear of investing in that type because it's not necessarily what people understand as an ROI, but definitely investing in yourself is a good thing because you're the number one person that can create that anyway, right? Yeah. Over time, when you're building a team and you are investing, like you said, last year you're going into the red. Mm-hmm. A lot of people want to save as much as they can to a certain point that they get their business to go to a level and then invest. Mm-hmm. Right? I hear that a lot. If I can just have this much money, then I'll spend. How do you see that? Because to me, that's very reactionary as well, right? Yeah. If I get this, then I'll do this. Whereas the way you're talking about investing in your business so that you get this, do you know what I mean? Like, how does that? How do you develop that and get over that fear?
Well, the question itself is a good one because anyone who's doing that will go, that's me. So if you're listening to this and you're that person, that's how you were taught. It's not your fault. Yeah. Like, you've got a belief system around money. There's an ROI, return on investment, but some people aren't motivated by pleasure. They're motivated by pain. There's also COI, so cost of inaction. Yeah. So every week that you don't know how to make $100,000 a week, how much money are you losing? If you're on 20 grand a week and you don't know how to make 100, you're losing 80 grand a week. You do the math on that over 52 weeks. What's that, 4 million? I just made that up. Is that 4 million roughly? Yeah. So if you just think in terms of this, yes, you can be safe and have a buffer. And by the way, that works for some people. It depends on who you are as a human. But every week or every month or every year that you don't have the skill sets, the mindset, the belief systems, you don't take the right actions, you don't operate in that being of the person who has that, because you all want something bigger. As long as you're not that person, there's a cost. There's a cost of inaction. Yeah. So yes, there's the cost of investing the money and the fear of what could go wrong, but what's the cost of the other side? There's a cost.
Get stuck and you don't go anywhere, right?
Which was me for years, and so many people stay stuck because they're afraid. It's fear, and it's rational fear. Without fear, you take all your money and go to the casino and put it on black. Yeah. It's healthy, but what's not healthy is when it dictates our decisions. Yeah. If we just sat down, journaling, reflecting, and we got rational more often, we'd make better decisions. And the successful people, they make fast decisions and they make scary decisions. Yeah. But then it's like the waves of life. Sometimes your old highs become your new lows. Yeah. You get to a point where it becomes easy to make these decisions. It's like a muscle.
Yeah.
Who are you choosing? Yeah, exactly. Sorry to cut you off. Like, who are you choosing to be and what decisions are you making? it's all choice.
Yeah, it's
know?
all choice. And some people, you know, they're happy to, you know, like their income goals might be 50 a month. It could even be, you know, 6 figures a year, and that's fine too. But like you're talking about, if there's more to it than that, then you can only go so far on your own without having to invest in either people, systems, or whatever it is that can get you to that point. And I think for most people, suffering setbacks and losses, even financially, is actually part of business, and you just have to plan for it, right?
Yeah.
What sort of thought process do you go through when you're seeing your bank account coming down, and you're telling yourself, obviously, you know, you're strong enough to say, hey, I know where I'm going with it, but what do you think helps for someone who maybe is developing that muscle still, where they go, oh shit, my card limits are starting to come down, cash in the bank is starting to come down? Like, what would be your suggestion for someone who's still learning and starting to work themselves out in that way? How do you get past that?
Well, it is challenging. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that when that was happening, I was certain I'd get through it. Like, I was very uncertain. I'm like, fuck, am I going to be able to make it? But that's healthy, you know? If you're in that position, then it's really just sitting down and doing an analysis with yourself and deciding whether or not it's right to keep going. Because there are times where you can slow down. Like, if your bank account's going lower and lower and you're 3 weeks away from zero, well, it's also a good idea to ask if you're doing the right things.
Yeah.
Because insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. So to answer your question, it's kind of challenging without super, like, a lot of context. But if you're reflecting daily and you're looking at the data, and if you're seeing what's working and what's not working, and you're breaking through your own shit, you're probably not going to get to that position. If you're currently in that position, just sit down and ask yourself, what's the fastest way to get cash flow into my business? Cash flow is king.
Yeah.
Most people, by the way, if you're talking about coaching businesses, have a terrible fucking back end.
Yeah.
I have complete certainty, and this is going to be my next business if anyone wants to steal it, is the next business is going to be going into coaching companies, doing 50 to 100 grand a month, and helping them build their back end and helping them build like $1 to $10 million a year and taking a cut. Our back end is insane.
Yeah.
This is going to get some flack. I was in Sam Ovens' mastermind. Fucking terrible. Loved, like, seriously, the first month was great, but nothing. It was literally just like one call a week. I learned what not to do in a mastermind. So to answer your question about what you can do if you're in that position, create certainty by visualizing what you want, because when you're losing money, it's so easy to go, oh, what if this happens? What if I fail?
Yeah.
Yes, that's possible. Bring it back and go, what if you succeed? And start focusing on the positives, which takes work. It's not as simple as like think better. Well, it is. But then go into your business and go, cool, well, where can I add value to my customers? I've got 50 customers. What if I offered, 10 of them a one-on-one day with me for 10 grand? That brings in $100,000 into the business. 10% of your clients will pay you extra money. There's that curve, right? Pareto's principle.
Yeah.
So it's actually quite easy to make money, especially if you have a client base and especially if you're successful.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
So the first answer would be focus on what you want, not what you don't want. That's going to take work. It's hard to do that when you're fucking struggling.
Gotta force it. Yeah.
You got to. And that's the point.
Yeah.
And then secondly is, where can you find money? Because look, money's important. It doesn't make you happy, but it's oxygen.
You need
like
it.
it's easy for me to sit here and tell you that I'm happy for the last 3 months in a row and the year's been amazing. But when I didn't have any money, it was like, I know I'm going to win, but like, what if I don't? And like, fuck, I probably should have a drink,
Yeah.
You need money for freedom. You don't need it. You can be a monk if you want to, but it's very helpful.
Though.
It's extremely important. It gives you freedom.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think people shy away from the talk of money because of whatever beliefs they have or attachment or, that they have in there. But if you don't have money, you can't serve anyone. Really, that's the bottom line. I'm curious to know then, for you, this year's been great. Like you said, you kind of winter season coming up. Where's the challenges that you see coming up this year for the rest of the year? Can you see that far? Do you look at challenges and go, okay, this is how I'm going to deal with it?
Yeah.
Or these are potential red flags that's going to happen in that time? What's that for you?
Good question. So up until, by the way, this is all very recent. Like any success that I may or may not have, any mindset that you may or may not see or hear is very recent. Up until 6 months ago, I found it very difficult to see more than a week into the future. Yeah. And I plan things, I schedule things, I set goals, but to just be able to step into a month or 3 or 6 from now was very challenging. one thing that's helped a lot with that is sitting down every quarter and doing something called a battle plan. So it's a 3-hour process. Reflect on the previous quarter where I've set targets for the first time in my life.
Yeah, nice.
And I teach this to all our clients. Of that room, 38 of them, 10 of them did this.
Yeah.
We're successful without any of this cool shit.
Yeah.
So every quarter sitting down and setting the objectives and key results for the quarter. So the first one is hiring the sales reps, building the SOPs for all that. Next one is getting all of our team onto Airtable. We've got these systems through Andrew Cruz. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
So paid for his high level mastermind. It wasn't cheap. I won't say the price here, but it was definitely worth it investing in that. So I can clearly see the next 3 months is we're going to hire probably 4 closers, 4 coaches, 2 setters, and maybe an operations manager.
Yeah.
And the bottleneck is going to be people.
Right.
The bottleneck is not sales and marketing. We can take our sales and marketing to $1 million a month tomorrow. We just up the spend. We do more of these. That's actually easy now, which is the best because that was hard for so long.
Yeah.
It's people. I found that once you reach a certain level of optimization and self-mastery, passing that on to other people is challenging because there's a lot of C and B players out there who think they're A players.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to drag C and B players behind me or elevate them to a higher level, and that just doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we've hired and fired in total 13 in the last 3 months, which is insane for me. Next month, probably another 20 that we go through. It's going to be finding the right people to put on the right seats on the bus and making sure they're a culture fit and that they're a skill set fit. We had an amazing coach that was amazing sales rep that was with us recently. He's now gone. Yeah. And we just clashed on 1 or 2 things, and he wants to start his own thing. We have a new phrase in our company, no talented assholes, right? Because there's a lot of talented people out there. We want people who treat this business like their own. Yeah. And that's unicorns, right? Finding a sales rep who's not super egotistical, who's empathetic, who wants money, but also wants to be a part of something. Like, where the fuck are they? Yeah. So we're trying to find unicorns. That's a red flag. I don't believe there's going to be any bottlenecks in terms of how I show up. I think it's more so how I show up as a leader. Yeah. That's the next phase for me. I'm still learning. I can lead my clients. Yeah. I'm still learning how to lead team.
Because they're different. You know, definitely different.
And I've realized some people you can front stab them. It's amazing. So I've got a coach I work with, and he said to me a few months ago, he said, if you were my client, I'd fire you for marketing. And I was like, fuck, that hurts. Thanks, brother.
Thanks.
But you do that to your team, their emotions get in the way, their feelings, they feel like you're abusing them. I don't feel heard. It's like, fuck. Not everyone's at that level yet, and I wasn't for so long. So communication with team, supporting them, that's the next phase for me. I think for any business owner is being a better leader. Yeah. How do I get these people to perform at a high level without burning them out?
Yeah. I think that's the key thing. I think you hit the nail on the head there with the difference in communication style, but also, like you said, you can push your team to a point where they're going to disappear. They're just going to burn, and their performance is going to come down. Yeah. What's the number, or I know we're talking about, it's not all about the money, right? But it's a scorecard. It keeps you in check. Yeah. What's the number by the end of the year?
6 million cash collected, 2.5 profit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If we don't keep growing. So yeah, this month will be massive. This month so far, it's the 4th of April. We're on 150K cash.
Yeah.
So it should keep growing. Yeah. So it should keep growing. For me, it is important, but it doesn't make me happy. Some of my best times in business, I've made the most money. It's the freedom and the choice it gives. So now I can hire more people and create more freedom. But I want to hit that 6 million mark of cash collected. It would be higher. We just don't have the right team in place, Yeah. And then we might get to $1 million a month and go, this isn't what I want. Like, I might want to make less and have a different lifestyle. I don't know yet. I haven't been there. I'm a very noob to this. I'm not an expert by any means. I've just built this thing very quickly after 30 years. So not that quickly.
But I think you're taking lessons from what you had in the past.
Absolutely.
Into it now, and understanding, like you said, about the leadership side of things, where how you lead your clients is different to how you lead your team, and I think that's a key component. Especially for, I know a lot of solopreneurs, they do really well with their clients, marketing and sales, but when they start bringing somebody on, they just can't let that piece go, and I think that's poor leadership. As well, right? So I think you're getting to that point.
I was doing that for a long time, though. For a very long time. Yeah, I'd get upset when team members would be sick or unwell. I would jump in and do things when they did it incorrectly.
Yeah.
I'm only just learning what you said. It's a blind spot again. Yeah. And this is why I'm investing so heavily in coaches. I spend 12 grand a month on coaches. I have 3 different coaches: systems, mindset, and business. Yeah. Because that's when you're paying for time. That's the most valuable resource on the planet, is paying for that. Going back to the revenue and profit number, it's not just the 6 million or the 3 or whatever. It's the doing it while you love the fucking game. Like, so many men and women can make money. Money is a game. But if you're making money and you're sacrificing your relationship, you're stressed out all the time, you can't sleep at night, you're overweight, you're unhappy, then what's the fucking point? This is my niche. Like, we help business owners whose marriages are falling apart. They come to us like, I make $10 million a year, but my wife cheated on me. What's the point? So what's exciting for me, and it's the first time in my life I have this, is building this amazing thing, but having a team that I love hanging out with. I flew my entire team over for this event. We had lunch, dinner together. We had a great time. They met my daughter, running an event for the team at the end of the year where they bring their families. Having clients I love working with. This mastermind we have, man, like such high level guys, and giving them all a hug and telling them I appreciate them. And they're like, I love you, brother. And I'm like, I'm getting paid to keep families together and hang out with awesome people. Yeah. And when you look at business like that, it's like, how do I add massive value, do what I love, cut out what I don't love? You do all the other stuff we talked about, the routines, the rituals, the working on yourself, life becomes so great. Yeah. Because we have this belief system that to be successful, you have to be stressed. Yes. Like, stress is what I was taught by my mother. She's a stress head. You get to a level where you don't feel stress, you feel pressure, and the pressure's amazing, and you don't get stressed. It's like, you feel stressed, but it's not the negative stress. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's the game, man. Yeah. Once you have that, it's game over.
That's awesome.
It's powerful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.